In this video, I'm going to talk about the 5 most common edits that you're going to be able to and want to know how to do in Adobe Lightroom. Those are exposure, color, sharpening, vignetting, and cropping. You don't have to necessarily do these in this order, but this is the way that they're organized in Lightroom, and so I'm going to show them to you in this order. The first thing you're going to want to do is navigate to the album that has the images that you want to work with or edit. In this case, this is the album that I've created that I want to edit and work with my images. So the first one is exposure. In exposure, you're controlling the brightness, the contrast, the highlight and shadow values, and the overall exposure of an image. So for instance, if I open up this picture here, on the right hand side in Adobe Lightroom, I'm able to get to those edits with these little slider options. So if I click on them, I'm going to see on the right hand side the first tab, which is called Light. That is their way of saying that this has everything to do with the lightness or darkness of the image. So I can grab exposure up or down, contrast up or down, the highlights, which basically is like exposing more or less, but what it's doing is it's limiting that exposure to the light parts of the image. The shadows does the same thing, but it limits it to the dark parts of the image. Then you have the whites, which is just adjusting the brightest brights, and the blacks, which adjust the darkest darks. So by just playing with these sliders a little bit, you're able to control those settings. Now if you want to, you can double click on any of these words and the settings go back to normal. So I'm going to play with the brightness right now, that overall exposure, to pull back some details on the highlights in these like light areas of my image. Maybe I'm going to increase the contrast a little bit, which makes this image a little bit more dramatic. I'll pull the black values down a little bit. I'll maybe bring the shadows up a little bit just so that I see some detail there. And this looks pretty nice. The next one is color. Now, if you shot in black and white, you can still adjust colors in the image even though the image is black and white. If you shot your image in color, you have some options to either convert this image to black and white or to actually work with those colors. We're not really going to focus too much on colors right now. That is a whole other thing to learn. It's an element of art in itself and requires a little bit more knowledge about color theory to kind of pull off. But for this image, what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert it to black and white. And then I'm going to go to the black and white mixer and I'm going to adjust different colors in the image to change their values to get my image to look the way that I want. So the interesting thing about these color sliders is I can adjust the brightness or darkness of individual colors in the picture. So for instance, I'm on green right now. Well, the grass was green. So if you see me grabbing this lighter or darker, what I'm doing is I'm taking everything that was green in the image and I can adjust what it looks like so I can make the people stand out a whole lot. This doesn't look particularly realistic, but if you do little adjustments there, it really does make a difference to making the people stand out in this picture. The next one is sharpening. Sharpening is down a little bit further. You can sharpen your picture. You can add noise reduction. What I like to do with sharpening is I like to drop down this little drop down caret and get some more options here. And the one that I like to pull up is masking. What masking does is it limits the sharpening to just the edges. So it's not sharpening everything, it's just sharpening the edges of your picture. It looks a little bit more natural and nice. I usually bring my masking up If I bring this down and I just show you what this looks like if I sharpen everything, you can see all this little grain and texture that's added to every little part of the image. It kind of adds and enhances the graininess. But if you pull up masking, you'll see that graininess goes away and it just ends up hitting the edges of things, which is actually really nice. The next one is vignetting. I'm very cautious on this, but what a vignetting does is it adds a little bit of darkness by pulling this down. It adds some darkness to the edges of the frame. That ends up drawing people's attention into the picture. I don't overly do it, but I like to keep that subtle. Another couple options here is texture and clarity end up enhancing that sharpness even more. You can see how sharp the letters are on the jerseys in this picture when I did that. And the last one is cropping. Cropping, I think, is one of the more important options that you have. It is in a different tab. So you'll notice that there are all these different tabs in Lightroom. We're going to focus today on just the editing and the cropping tab. So if I go to the crop tab, I can change the ratio of my crop. Right now it is 16:9, but I can change it to anything that I want. I can pull and change the amount that I'm cropping. I can crop out unnecessary information if I just wanted to focus on these runners here and ignore the people that are sort of having a side conversation in the background there. So I can do something like that. Again, if I change the ratio here, if I lock it with this lock button, it maintains that 3:2 ratio, which is basically the difference between the height and the length. So as I shrink this, you notice that the ratio stays the same. If I unlock this, then I can kind of go with whatever ratio I want. So I'm going to pull that out a little bit and maybe crop something like that. Okay. When you're done with edits, if you like something particularly that you've done, then you can exit. It takes about 5 seconds to update the photo on the Lightroom cloud, like the computer on the cloud that's responsible for editing all these images. So you wait about 5 seconds. Those edits that you have made are now here, and if I close this picture, you'll see that it changed here. If you want to upload this or share this picture that you've created, or you want to download it so you can print it, what you're going to have to do is open it up and hit this download button. You're going to download a JPEG with a full-size edit, and this can go back into whatever folder that you're creating. Now, if you're on a Chromebook, it's not going to give you the option. It's just going to put the photo into My Pictures. On my PC here, I'm going to navigate to my documents and go to my photography folders, and I'm going to put it here, but I'm going to change the name to edit so that I know that it's an edited image.